Alright, in today's video I'm going to be going over the MDX and kind of what the resolution was to the clunking noises and what you kind of can expect from your suspension. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the Volkswagen Beetle out, and then I'm going to create room for the MDX so I can rotate the tires. And while I rotate the tires for the next interval, I will go over the suspension changes. Hopefully this starts. This time around, I want to swap that one with the right rear, so cross. I think the last time I just did front to back, which was really easy. This one's gonna be a little bit harder because I have to jack it up from both sides and secure it and make sure that I don't tilt the car any which way. So I'm gonna be using jack stands probably. Jack it up, get it up off the ground, and hopefully it won't cause me any problems. I'm gonna lift it up. I have my, I believe it's 22 millimeter. And I put a piece of tape on there to not scratch the wheels. But I'm going to be lifting for the rear. The rear does not need to be pre-loosened because of the rear parking brake, but the front does. Once I lift it up in the air, it would be spinning freely. So I'll go ahead and pre-loosen it now and then continue to lift the rear and the front with the secondary jack, put some jack stands, and at least get the first set moved. Real quick to reiterate the lift points, there is a piece of metal there. That's a part of the frame. So it is about that far back. And for the rear, lifting from here, Alright, so as mentioned on the forums, this is the tie rod end that they speak of that seems to come loose. You can see how the nut itself is much lower than the cotter pin. It could essentially be loose and loosen up into where the cotter pin is and still hold on for dear life. What you can do if you want to do it at home and not worry about the dealer, let's see if this will focus. Come on. A 19 millimeter. You can just then stick a 19 here and tighten it up. You can't use the close-in side, obviously, because of the cotter pin, unless you clip it. So if you clip this end a little bit, or squeeze it up until the threaded portion, you'll be able to slip this over and get a good, tight, snug grip on it. So that's pretty much it. This is supposedly the clunking noise. You can gain access to this without taking the wheel off, but if you wanted to do it with the wheel off just to be sure, or take the cotter pin out and use a torque wrench, you can do that. But I think that this is probably the most simple way before taking it to the dealer, just to reach around as a part of your oil change or inspection, and then just get it nice and snug and tighten that up. And I think there was another cotter pin. So this one up here is a different design. You can see it is through the threaded portion and locks into place. So you just pull this pin out right here, this cotter pin, you pull it out, it's sprung, and then you can loosen that one. So if they change the design, they would have to change the design of the tie rod end, because that is part of this assembly coming through. And they could essentially cause them to drill one a little bit lower than that, or through a castle nut. Just depends on the design. If they drill it through both ways, this way and this way, it would give you more options to tighten it down and get it locked in place. But they only have one hole in this one, and it's very much at the end. So hopefully that will explain why sometimes you hear that thud noise in the suspension, and that will clear it up, at least on the forums. The other one was way up there. I don't want to cover that today because I don't want to open the hood and deal with that, but that's pretty much it, just this one. All right, when you do your inspections, it's always good to check for nails, because I was looking at it and there were a ton of rocks and everything in here. And unfortunately, this dumb guy right here, a flowered nail or something. I don't even know if it's leaking, in all honesty, but that'll have to get fixed. Alright, so I wanted to show the rear, how the rear is done for this control arm. Should probably be done the same thing for the tie rod. You can see the design of the castle nut and how it works on this one. The thread ends at the top of the castle nut. Castle nut obviously has its slots, and the heart-shaped pin goes through, reusable. They should just start using those everywhere, right? And you can kind of see from the side how it works. So why not just use those? I don't know why. It would simplify everything and probably would come out without any problems. I know people are saying something about torque values. Hey, I torqued them a lot higher than 44 foot-pounds. I don't know what, they could have replaced some things. There was some shaking and noise from the calipers here, and rotor. There's no more rotor noises. This looks like it was done again, and this was tightened, so nothing from the rotor, nothing from the axle anymore. I actually got under there and shook it, and there was nothing when I rotated it. So yeah,
If the axle got replaced again, I don't know. I don't know if they replaced any other parts like tie rod ends, but yeah, secretly I tightened these just to avoid even taking it to the dealer, and even some of these too. Pulled the cotter pin, tightened it, put it back in the next section, and mine persisted. So I think mine was actually the axle, in all honesty, or maybe this axle nut, because it got worse after they said they inspected it and took it apart for the axle. Waiting 3 weeks to a month to get a new part. I don't know if they even did, or they just put it back in and closed it back up. And they didn't even replace this axle nut. You can see that's the first one. This is the second. So obviously loosened and retightened again. So who knows? Just have them look over the suspension. Purposes, I did this right before 12,000 miles. I think the last time I changed it around 5,500 for the oil change, so I'm about due for the oil change again, and I figured I would just do the tire rotation today and do the oil another time.